Hi everyone, we're now at halfway point after Module 2. You might have noticed in Module 2 that I went a little bit ahead of what was expected in my example in Learning Engagement 4 because the last S was to select the strand, and as you'll the strands and the criteria or criterion used in your summative assessment task. So when we will get here to Module 3, then what you will have noticed, of course, here is an activator. It's basically, there's nothing much to say unless that you take some time to reflect upon what you've learned so far. But then when we get to the second learning engagement activity, the summative task and objectives forum, then it was intended for you to select the objectives and the strands from the mathematics guide. So I had not introduced that much these things, even though that you have looked at the progression of the strands and of the command terms in Module 1. So I thought about just like going over it as an introduction to make sure that everyone understands what is expected from each criteria and some common mistakes, if I may say. But I know I have also commented on it like in the last within the second module. So we're at some point where we just are trying to clarify things in our head, perhaps. So it's okay. So first of all, there are, as you have noticed, three separate rubrics, one for year 1, 3, and 5. And here I copy pasted like the comment from the MYP from principles into practice that said that you should introduce MYP years 3 rubrics in year 2 and the MYP rubrics 5 in year 4. Then when you take a look back at your summative assessment task, but most of you have already done it, so I understand, but still we will take a look at the strands and criterion. So you have basically done like many parts of the unit plan. So instead of just like going back to your unit, I would ask you to just look at the strands, look if all strands can be assessed with your task, and to select some strands if it is relevant, and to copy paste all of that in a unit plan. So I can go through it first. You'll see that in my post I have copy pasted the rubrics in Google Doc. Actually, it's also a docx document. If you download it, you can open it with Office, of course, of Microsoft. So if you just download the document in docx, you can open it in Word. Else you can just like put it back in your Google Drive. So you cannot write on it, of course, but if you want to, you'll see later that if you do like the category 2 workshop, then you would go within it and try to clarify some of these strands. So to do that, it is easier to start with a docx or a Google Doc. So that's why I provided it to you. The second thing is when you go in a unit plan, you'll see that here I have attached the unit that the IB has on my IB. So basically it's okay, you can fill it up, you can download it, fill it up, and it's okay. I have done like, I have taken that a while ago, and I have basically just put some color perhaps and also put some comments that I already say in my workshops. So here I have a blank version of my version of the unit plan. So I really started from the docx document from the IB, and I just added some comments and some things that I find useful for my school actually. So here I have the blank version and also a version with comments. So if you use the blank version, what you'll see is, once again, you have a Google Doc which you cannot modify, but if you go and download the copy, then you're able to modify it. So here I just downloaded it. If I open it, then you see it's my own at that point, so I can write it down. So here, all of these, the key concept, the related concepts, the global context exploration, the conceptual understanding, the statement of inquiry, are all things that we've done so far. Also, if you go in this area, you have the summative assessment task that you have designed with the graphs. Actually, if I just can write it down. And here in the last learning engagement in module 2, we were asking like the relationship between the SOI and the summative assessment task. So basically is to link the statement of inquiry to your summative assessment task. So in order for me to be easier for me to see the link between the two, I ask my teachers to copy paste it, but normally like it's not there. It's just because it helps me. And here on the left you see the objectives. Here we would copy paste like all of the 11 strands that we have for our summative assessment task. But here I use Google Doc because it was easier for formatting than Word Online. But here, let's say that I would have a second assessment task, then I could just select it and add a row like underneath, and then I could add a second summative task, which might happen. So I just write it down like this, but basically you can put as many as you do. Normally we have 1, but we might have 2 and 3, because you have noticed that in mathematics, normally when we do, I'll talk a little bit later, but normally A, B, and D are 3 separate tasks, but we could within the same unit like do 3 summative assessment in order to assess all criteria. So this is something that you can do here. The other thing here, if I go back to my to this, is that I also have provided one copy where I just added some resources and some comments. So once again, if you download it, you can put it on a Google Doc or open it in Word. And all of the gray areas actually do not are things that might help, but are not to be like given to the IB. So here, when I say the mathematics concepts, what you'll see is that it will open up a document where I just copy pasted the concept, the key concepts, and the related concepts in mathematics, because I think it helps. Same thing here with the global context. When we select a global context exploration, it's just pages from the MYP, from principles into practice guide. So all of these links are intended to go faster. Same thing here. You have the mathematics guide, the from principles into practice guide. There are also videos which are on my IB, but if you want to look at them, you would have to first connect to my IB. I just made a mistake here. Well, I'm just not on the right row. So if I connect first to my IB, you will have resources that are provided in my IB, and there are videos that have been provided. If you just connect it, I'll show you the way. Well, actually, I can actually show you where it is in the Program Resource Center in the MYP. So you'll have the banner here, which will appear from the MYP. I'm just waiting, but it's gonna get there soon, I hope. You can refresh it because somehow I don't know why it didn't work. Then you have the middle years program, and then you'll see that there's a part here for MYP unit planning. So actually all of the videos are here, and also a document which is called Evaluating MYP Plans, Unit Plans, and also the document which I've attached here for the MYP Unit Planner. But let's say that I would just have my link here, my document. If I would click here on a video, then it would go to the right video. Okay, so this is the idea. It was intended to help. Here you see that I have written down like conceptual understandings, like the key concept and related concepts linked together, what's a statement of inquiry, and some comments, and comments pretty much everywhere. Here the rubrics for year 1, 3, and 5, the GRASP model. So there are things that I have provided. But if you download it, at the end, just make sure that you select the row and just erase them before you submit it, let's say, to the IB to someone, because it's irrelevant. It's just to help. Okay, so that was one thing. So you see that by now you can pretty much feel like the beginning of the unit plan. It is something which is expected in this activity. But for now, I just will look like at the not the progression, because you've done really good work, but on the criteria. So let's say I use year 5. What you might have noticed is that criterion A, all 3 strands look similar to criterion D strands. So if you look at D2 and D3, you have select appropriate mathematical strategies and apply the selected mathematical strategies to reach a correct solution. But basically, this pretty much comes to the same as criterion A, which is to apply to select mathematics, appropriate mathematics, and then to apply them successfully. The difference here is that we have a variety of contexts and different difficulty levels for the problem. So we have many problems, some simple problems or more complex problems, or some challenging problems in familiar situation, and some challenging problems in unfamiliar situations. And if you do not have like all of these levels of difficulty, then you will not be able to you would not give the opportunity to the students to reach all levels. So you have to make sure that all of these can be like assessed within the same evaluation. So let's say I would have an exam with 8 problems, like 2 of each, and then I would be able to assess it pretty easily. So this is for criterion A, which is often like pretty much a regular exam. But if you want to link the exam to the statement of inquiry, that means that some of your problems will be contextualized using your global context exploration and your concepts. So basically, maybe not all of the questions, but a few questions, let's say 2 or 3 questions, would be really actually linked with it, would be using the context of your unit plan. So let's say I am talking about consumption. Well, I would have, let's say, 3 problems among my problems in my exam, which would talk about consumptions, and then it would make sense. And if I have the conceptual understanding that I want the students to represent relationships between quantities, let's say graphically, then I would have some questions that ask that, of course, in order to be coherent with my statement of inquiry. So this is for criterion A. For criterion D, just go there right now, we are like, it's like one problem, like something that has to be solved using a real life context. So it's much broader, and there's not like many problems. And then you would because we are in a real life problems, we would normally ask the students to justify the degree of accuracy of the solution. And all these trends I could go like in more details, but normally it's not like the main goal in category 1. But one thing which is important is to understand that we have like one problem, something which is real life, using a real life context in order to assess criterion D. So it might be a project, it may be some other search. I could do a website, I could do many things actually using that context, that criterion. And criterion C can be used with any other criterion and use pretty much like recognize things that we always assess. For criterion B, then people often think that if I am in real life and I find a relationship, I'm necessarily doing criterion D. But the question that we will have to ask yourself is, are the students able to reach all levels once again of criterion B? So in order to do so, I'll do it in the second video, and I'll just show you like examples from the MYP exams. So I'm coming back in the second video.